Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a story that honestly feels like a dramatic, cinematic Hollywood script, but is actually an unbelievable true story. We're going to break down the ultimate moral test, an event that shocked an entire nation and challenges our very understanding of integrity and wealth. Right off the bat, I want you to imagine a highly specific scenario. Imagine finding a bag, and inside that bag is exactly $1 million. Now, here's the catch. There are no cameras. There are absolutely no witnesses. Nobody would ever know. Would you keep it? It's the central ethical dilemma we're unpacking today, and one man actually had to answer it in real time. Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, The Ultimate Temptation. This is where we meet our protagonist, David, and learn about his completely invisible status quo. Before we get to that fateful moment, you have to understand David's reality. To most people walking past him every single day, he was basically invisible. 8 years. Just let that sink in. That is nearly a decade that David spent homeless. He slept on freezing cold city sidewalks, survived solely on food donated by strangers, and every single morning he was forced to search through trash bins just hoping to find enough to eat. He owned almost nothing, and his daily life was just an endless, exhausting struggle to survive. Yet, despite all of that, David never stopped believing that honesty mattered. And that belief was put to the ultimate test on one completely ordinary afternoon. He was just walking through a quiet park when his curiosity pulled him toward a black leather bag sitting abandoned, right beside a wooden park bench. With trembling hands, David slowly opened it up, and inside was exactly $1 million. Stacks and bundles of cash. I want you to really grasp the sheer magnitude of this discovery, heavily contrasted with his desperate daily struggle. A man who couldn't even afford a single meal was suddenly holding a massive fortune. Which brings us to part 2, the million-dollar choice. The suspense here is just incredible, because that fortune was sitting right in front of him in a completely empty park. This slide brilliantly illustrates the intense internal conflict rushing through David's mind as his hands shook. He looked around. No police, no cameras, not a single witness. The decision was entirely his. On one hand, this money could literally change everything. He could rent a home, eat every day, start a completely new life. But on the other hand, a quiet, unyielding voice in his head whispered, "This money belongs to someone." So I want to pause for a second. What would you do? It's incredibly easy to answer this from the comfort of where you're sitting right now. But seriously, try to put yourself in David's shoes, cold, hungry, and ignored by society for 8 long years. Let's look at the totally surprising decision he actually made. Without taking a single dollar, David closed the bag. He picked it up carefully, and he walked straight to the nearest police station. Just imagine the immense, heavy deliberation in each of those steps, physically carrying a bag of absolute temptation away from himself. And as you can probably guess, this left the police officers deeply confused. Part 3, the police station surprise. So, David walks into the station. He walks right up to the front desk, quietly places this expensive leather bag down, and simply says, "I think someone lost this." Well, when the officers opened the bag, what they discovered left the entire room totally speechless. They didn't just find cash. Revealing it piece by piece, they found stacks of money, sure, but also important business documents, personal family photographs, and identification. It belonged to a real, specific, wealthy businessman. The owner's name was Michael Anderson, and within just an hour, a deeply relieved Michael arrived at the station. He quickly checked through the cash and the documents, and the incredible result? Not a single dollar was missing. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark visual contrast it shows inside that police station. Here was David, a man standing in worn-out clothes, old shoes, with a completely empty stomach. And right beside him was the asset he just protected, over $1 million of fortune. A man with absolutely nothing had just fiercely guarded the massive wealth of a man who seemingly had everything. Michael turned toward David. For a few seconds, he was so overwhelmed he couldn't even speak. He finally stepped forward, shook David's hand, and asked him a simple but profound question. "Why didn't you keep the money?" David smiled gently at Michael and said, "Because losing my honesty would make me poorer than being homeless." The entire room fell into absolute silence. It is a defining statement of unshakable integrity, and it's the emotional core of this entire story. Part 4, the honest reward. See, David actually thought he was just going to turn around and walk right back to his life on the streets. But his life was about to change forever. Michael was so deeply moved by this that he instantly offered David a massive cash reward. But David's humility was unreal. He actually refused the huge sum, accepting only a very small amount, telling Michael, "I only need enough to start over. Someone else may need the rest more than I do." The cops in the room literally couldn't believe what they were hearing. Let's move to and see how this builds across the timeline. Within weeks of finding that bag and refusing the massive reward, Michael offered David a full-time job at his company. And as the months and years passed, David gained a stable income, a permanent home, and real hope for his future. The man who was once invisible on the streets became widely respected by everyone around him. So, what's the ultimate takeaway here? It's simple. The richest people are not the ones who have the most money. They are the ones who refuse to lose their values. David proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that true wealth isn't held in a black leather bag. It is held entirely in your character. I want to end this explainer with a final, provocative thought for you to really reflect on. What is the true price of your honesty? When the cameras are off, when there are no witnesses around, and temptation is sitting right in front of you, what guides your moral compass? Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this brilliant true story leaves you as inspired as it left me. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.